News of the ceasefire was greeted with protests in southern Israel and celebrations from Hamas supporters north of Gaza City, both groups wanting a permanent solution to violence. So what's that going to be? How's it going to take effect? Edmund Ghareeb is an academic with extensive knowledge of Middle East history and politics, and he is with us here now. What do you make of what we've seen? We saw this covert mission, then we see the trading of airstrikes, and now this.
Really, this is a very big question, because I think on the one hand, we're getting mixed signals from the two parties, both sides. On the one hand, there have been reports that Hamas saw one of the snipers saw a bus carrying Israeli soldiers, but they let the soldiers disembark and before they shot at the bus. So that was clearly intended to send a message that they did not want to kill the soldiers, but that they had the capability to do so. On the other hand, we also heard from some Israeli officials that they wanted to see the ceasefire, because if they had not agreed to the ceasefire, the Hamas would have continued and rockets would have hit Tel Aviv. At the same time, we're hearing from Israeli officials, also other Israeli officials, including hardlines, that they have to take a tough line and that they are opposed to the settlement. I think that what I'm finding is I think that there is an attempt to try to reach some kind of understanding to end at least the conflict, to reach, not permanently, but to reach some kind of a permanent ceasefire for a while, because neither Hamas nor Israel wants a war, a larger war. So I think that there are also a lot of pressures from outside, a lot of efforts from outside. Hamas appeared to quickly accept the Egyptian suggestion for a ceasefire. So that also in itself is an indication that they do not want to go further than that. And so I think what we're seeing now is that this could be a turning point, either towards greater escalation or perhaps towards some kind of an understanding on a ceasefire.
It's interesting because I've read a lot recently, and it seems to me that they're almost mirror in some respects, that Hamas has these pressures, the military people saying, we got to go for it, keep striking, the political side saying, let's go with this Egyptian proposal, and Netanyahu kind of the same thing, wanting some type of agreement, because they don't want to, if they crush Gaza, then all of that's on their hands. So both feeling the same sorts of pressures from the right, I guess.
And this is I mean, the reason that this situation, it seems to be so complicated and becoming complicated and also becoming dangerous. But at the same time, I think we have a real problem on the ground. You have a lot of people getting over 200 Palestinians have been killed since the beginning of the year. You have 16,000 people wounded because of these protests. Gaza is a prison without walls, but the economic situation is very difficult. The living situation is very difficult. So this is why I think there are some parties from the outside seeking to at least calm things down. That's why Qatar ended up sending the $15 million to help improve the living conditions of the population there, perhaps to avoid some kind of an explosion. But the situation in the long term, this cannot continue as it is. It ultimately will lead to a much larger explosion unless the basic issues are dealt with.
You've seen a lot of U.S. administrations try and do something without any success. But the U.S. president saying he's got the deal of the century, and Jason Greenblatt, his envoy, is saying it may be revealed, the contours of it, at least probably by December 1st. Give me your sense of that, and how difficult is it for the U.S. to play a role, given they're kind of putting their thumb on the scales in favor of Israel?
This is exactly the problem for the United States on the one hand. There's no doubt, and I think maybe perhaps there is something linked to what's going on. There was supposedly also a botched Israeli operation, perhaps to kidnap or assassinate one of the leaders of Hamas, which triggered the assaulting. But the efforts, perhaps, that are being made to cool things down maybe are related to this deal of the century before that plan is submitted or declared. But I think the problem is, unless there is a just settlement that takes into account not only the interests of the Israelis, but the interests of the Palestinians as well, we are not likely to see a real solution, a lasting solution to the peace process. And the U.S., to play a role, an effective role as a mediator, they need to be somewhat balanced, which is what President Trump was saying during the elections, during the campaign. He was saying he's pro-Israeli, but if he's going to play a role as a mediator to solve the problem, he has to be neutral. Well, now is the time to play that role.
Other countries, you've mentioned Qatar, Egypt, Oman's also been discussed as possible, a place where, what do you see regionally? Anybody else, an actor that can play a major role in all of this?
Well, there's not, regionally, it's for Egypt is going to be an important player, basically, because of its size, its influence, its position on the border, its relationship with Israel, its relationship with Hamas. I think probably it's the most important player. But there are also other players coming from the outside, from Europe, for example. Norway has been playing a very interesting role, a very important role, and they want to see, they are seeking a ceasefire and a calming down of the situation.
Edmund, it's always a pleasure. Thanks so much for your analysis. Great to see you.